Welcome to Module 2. In Module 2, we'll look at strategic planning and the fit of marketing within the overall organizational strategic planning efforts. Strategic planning includes the plans, actions, objectives, and goals of an organization as it moves throughout a period of time. So a strategic plan is focused on the organization as a whole. Within an organization, you may have an operations department, human resources, a sales department, finance, and marketing. Now remember that marketing is one subset of the organizational whole, meaning that marketing does play a role in strategic planning, but overall our marketing is supporting the organizational objectives and action plan identified in the strategic planning process. Let's take a look at the strategic planning process. Steps in the strategic planning process begin with defining a vision statement. The vision statement is a destination statement, meaning setting the tone for where we are going to go or where we ultimately would like to end up. It's often inspirational, and then it gets us all to think and dream about where the business or organization can go. The mission statement answers the question of what the company actually does, who the company serves, and how are we going to get where we want to go. The third step in the strategic planning process focuses on the gap analysis. And this really looks in the here and now, where we look at where we want to go, how we're going to get there, versus where we currently are. And that gap analysis can help us identify core action items to assist us in establishing the objectives and goals as we move throughout the strategic planning process and implementation. You'll also notice that the last step in the strategic planning process is to monitor progress. Go back to the ecosystem model, where we define the vision statement, establish the mission statement, complete the gap analysis, establish the objectives and goals, and continue to monitor the strategic planning process as it moves throughout the ecosystem. This strategic plan, as set, doesn't mean it will always be as it is, because the only thing consistent in the world of marketing is change. And as market landscapes change, technological advances come into play, and consumer preferences begin to shift, the strategic plan will once again be reevaluated in preparation to address customer needs. Now let's look at establishing objectives and goals in a little bit more detail, and the concept of SMART goals. SMART goals are action items that are measured. Now they're measured meaning that you can actually determine whether you met that objective or action item or not. It's great to say we want to be the best company in the world, but how do we determine if we actually did that or not? So SMART goals help us to develop actually quantifiable, meaning we can measure that objective and action item to know whether we met the benchmark or not. If we didn't, how do we need to reevaluate and develop a SMART goal to then move forward with that action item? So SMART goals file SMART goal format, meaning specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. They're specific in that we outline exactly what we want to accomplish. They're measurable, meaning we put in a measurable metric. Maybe it's a percentage gain, number of conversion, increase in sales, or simply awareness and reach. They're attainable, meaning we've looked at our historical data and information gained about where the market is, and we're realistic about whether or not we can meet this goal. So while we want to be the best company in the world as a startup, is that really attainable, and is it realistic? And lastly, they're time-bound, meaning we put a date or a measurement, whether it's Q1, first year of sales, or maybe it's by March 1st. We hope to achieve that action item. But the goal is that it is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound to help us as an organization or a marketing team determine whether we've actually met that action item or objective or not. Now that we've learned a little bit about strategic planning, let's look at a few resources that marketing teams use to assist the overall organizational strategic planning process. The first model I'd like to introduce you to is the BCG model, or the Boston Consulting Group model. In this model, we define products based upon where they fit in the category. Products are identified as stars, cash cows, problem children or question marks, and dogs. And when I think of the BCG model, even though they divide it in a 4-quadrant basis, I really like to think of it in terms of a bell curve. Because when you look at the overall product development life cycle, we really do follow a bell curve. The product is introduced. As the product is introduced, it continues to maintain momentum. As customers buy in, they become interested. We're pushing out a lot of marketing materials and dollars, and overall sales begin to rise. Now, as sales and product sales begin to rise, we have increased customers, so we have traction. And at that point, we really can start to scale back our marketing because we don't need to invest as much in our marketing actions implemented because the customers are aware of us. Now, that's where we start to kind of move into this top of the bell curve, where our product is rolling, production is increased, and really we don't have to do much with it. Overall brand awareness is there, and the product, it continues to move throughout the sales cycle. But then we start to hit this cusp. And at this cusp, this is where we start to go, what happens next? Sales are starting to decline, consumers are less interested, and we have to make decisions as a company. As we move to the end of the bell curve where product sales ultimately hit zero. So when we start to look at the bell curve, along with the BCG model, let's put it together. So in this overall initial stage where we're starting to gain traction, sales are increasing, we're putting a lot of marketing dollars into play, this is where we have our stars. These are the products that are the latest and greatest, and they're moving up through the sales cycle. A lot of marketing dollars at play, production is increasing. Now, once we get to that sweet spot where we're putting limited marketing dollars actually into the marketing strategy, but brand awareness is high, as well as sales, this is where we have our cash cows. This is the sweet spot. Now remember, the cash cow market ultimately starts to move through that bell curve, and the product becomes less desirable or interesting. And that's where we have the problem child or the question mark. And this is where, as a marketing team, we can really help the strategic planning process and that of the organization in saying, what should happen next? Is this a product that we need to reevaluate, repackage, maybe add some new features based upon consumer feedback gained? Is this a product that we ultimately want to divest? Are we Apple and we're ready to roll out our latest and greatest, newest edition so we know that we have another product ready to roll through the product development life cycle? Or is this something we ultimately want to become a dog and it's a product that we want to divest? So even though the BCG model that I've introduced in the module, and you'll learn more about here, is divided into a 4-quadrant module, I wanted to show you what it would look like on a bell curve. Now, this bell curve will come into play as we move throughout our future modules and learn more about product introduction, development, and evaluation. But take BCG and apply it as we move forward.